Hi, I'm Alex Howard, and welcome to Conscious 2. My guest in the studio today here at the Integral European Conference is Elizabeth Debold. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hey, Alex.
And Elizabeth is one of the leading thinkers on gender development, is an author of a number of articles, including a co-author of the book Mother-Daughter Revolution. And Elizabeth's also got a new book that she's working on at the moment. And in today's interview, we're going to explore gender development and, in a sense, have a bit of an exploration of the male and female roles and perhaps what's most helpful, in a sense, of those roles and how to best perhaps embody those. So, Elizabeth, maybe a good starting point is, what do we even mean when we talk about gender development?
It's such a terrible term, isn't it? It's so awful. Gender development, it sounds like astrophysics or something. You know, it's like, well, it doesn't pertain to me. But gender development is about, it's about something that is so close to us that we don't even see it. It's about how it is that we go from being a baby, an infant, right? A little sweet blob of cooing, crying,
gooiness.
Gooey,
I have a 7-month-old baby at home. I get that gooey thing.
And how do we go from that to becoming men and women in culture who know what we're doing and have goals and so forth and are different from each other in ways that the culture says this is right. So gender development is developing our identity as male and female. Like people, I think Gloria Steinem in the U.S. and it's Simone de Beauvoir said one isn't born a woman, one becomes one. It's also true about men. You're not born a man, you become one, and you become one in your engagement and interaction with your culture. It's like gender is the place where being an individual and living in a culture that has certain things to say about what a good life is, what it means to be human, what you should value, where they intersect. And then it becomes us. So it's a very, really kind of bland, abstract term for something that is so nitty-gritty and so much a part of our life, our choices, and our sense of what makes us happy, and so there's kind of like a real disconnect between the term itself and really what it's all about.
And it also seems that the term, it's pretty loaded for people as well.
Ooh, yeah.
You know, it's like the idea. What do you mean, man or woman? You know, are you saying that I'm? Can you speak to a little bit to some of the, I don't know, I guess you do meet it day in, day out in your work, people's resistance to the idea of being even given a label of masculine or feminine?
Well, I think that's a really interesting new phenomenon. And I think that that's, it's the whole transgender question, transsexual question. This is very new. This is, it's really interesting to realize that categorizing people as homosexual or heterosexual didn't happen until the modern era. Before that, there were sex practices that people engaged in, but you weren't gay or straight. It
wasn't a label.
It wasn't a label. Yeah. Masculine and feminine weren't words used in the English language until like the 13th, 14th century.
Is that right? Wow.
Figure that out.
Wow.
So what does that say about what it meant to be male or female before then?
Right.
It meant that there were roles that that women and men were expected to play, and that's who you were. As we get into modernity and this idea of masculine and feminine emerges, it's like, oh, there's a way of being that is not just that I give birth and raise children, or that you work in the fields and, you know, do your thing, or that you're a coppersmith, or you're a knight. You know, it's not just that. It's that there's actually something that you have to cultivate in order to become masculine.
Yes.
Right? So these things are very, very, very new. And with it's really a byproduct of the 60s. The questioning of masculine and feminine right now, or male and female, and saying, well, wait a minute, it's not it's not a polarity, not in the way that in 100 years ago, or in the Victorian era, it was considered not just a polarity, a real opposition. That whatever man was, woman wasn't, and vice versa. So if a man is intellectual, a woman is emotional. Now that's something that exists throughout Western culture for complex reasons.
Sure.
But even creating medical theories from that, like they would say, it's like, oh, I mean, this is so true that if a woman actually uses her mind too much, that it makes her womb migrate in her body so that she can't have children.
It really said that?
Yes.
Wow.
So, we're beyond that.
I hadn't heard that before.
It's pretty weird, huh?
They call that progress, right?
Right. No, yes. Yeah. But so we're at a point now where that's, of course we're going, well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And these things are, obviously we're talking about humanity.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the two parts of humanity that are required in order to produce offspring, which is important for any culture. But what is valuable to us is becoming more and more not just simply what happens at a sexual reproductive level for culture, but at a creative level, at a spiritual level. And it's at those levels that there really isn't an essential something that makes us drastically different.
Can you say something about, when we talk about masculine and feminine, you touched on it in a very traditional perspective of intellectual and emotional, but can you say a bit more about the difference between those qualities and the kind of healthy expression of that?
I don't like going there because it's a very good question, and it's a really important question, and it's important for me to say I don't like going there.
Yeah, you're welcome to say that. And you don't have to go there, but I'm still curious.
No, because it's like if you step back and go, okay, what do we mean usually by masculine and feminine?
Yeah.
What we usually mean is a polarity, and where the masculine is assertive, the feminine is passive, where we have rationality versus emotionality. We have a tendency towards agency, which means action on one's own behalf, or motivate, and communion. All of these things are about roles that men and women have played for centuries, and even you could say before that. Women. I mean, culture was created in order to create context that made it more and more viable or likely that women would be able to bear children and children would be able to grow to maturity. So it's like this has been a very important role, and women have learned so much and created the human beings that we are. And then the men traditionally have created the context in which we are in, the cultures, the civilization, the stuff of it, and the processes of it, and so forth. So that's where you get this difference from. But the question is this use one of those awful words from philosophy, is it an ontological category? Meaning, is it something that is about an essence in being itself? Or is it a habit?
And I think that in a sense is at the heart of my question. And that was part of my curiosity to have this dialogue, because I'm curious. What is your sense of that, or your experience of that? Is there something in the essence of masculine and feminine which is not culturally created, is not an identity that someone takes on, or is there not?
I don't think we know. I don't think we know. And I'll give you an interesting example. So if you were to say, okay, I want to figure out like what the pure kind of qualities that come from male female are. It's like, okay, how far back do we go? So you say, well, let's look at primates. Look at primates, and you say, well, we've got the dominant males, right? And then we've got the passive females that take care of so there's got to be something essential there. Well, then let's look at our closest kin, the chimpanzee and the bonobo. So if you look at the chimpanzee, you go, well, that works, right? We've got the females that take care of the young, and we've got the male dominance hierarchy. We've got the alpha male. We've got a culture we don't do that anymore as humans, but it's sort of a template. Well, I mean, but when you look more deeply, you find out, well, actually the females have a dominance hierarchy themselves, that the females aren't passive at all. In fact, they've done studies where they have looked at, they've done DNA testing on the offspring in a chimp community, wondering, it's like, wow, wonder how many offspring that alpha male has, because he's the one that gets first dibs, right? Okay. So they go and they looked, and they were shocked. I think it was in the teens. Even more shocking, it wasn't from, most of the offspring were not from males that were also in the community. So the females are out going to the edge of the community and having, and having sex with males from outside of the community. All of the researchers, they had no idea.
It kills the concept of alpha male, right?
It does, I know. It's like, what is he getting himself all upset about? But all
that drama over nothing.
I know, because there are repercussions for females that are flaunting having sex in front of with another male in front of the alpha. You see all those things on YouTube, all the clips. It's like, wow, this is really. But then when you get down to it, it's like, wow. This is very interesting. So even in our chimp family, we find it doesn't quite work that way. We don't have passive, submissive females. There's something else going on. And then if you look at bonobos basically are a female-run, community. That and they think that it has to do with a difference in food supply. That where the bonobos grew, where their niche was, there was a lot of abundant food. Where chimps were still reliant on strength and somebody go and get the food and bring it to it. But with the bonobos, it was easy, and so because it was easy, the females had a lot of time to bond with each other, and they basically have created a culture in which the males are not allowed to be aggressive to any of the females or the infants or the young, because the females will gang up with each other and go after the guy.
Okay.
So it sounds like some things that are happening now with, I think, the Pink Sari Brigade in India.
Yeah.
But it's so here we have two examples of way before human. And you see that
there's the essence without the kind of cultural thing so
right,
much.
Without the thinking and so forth. And you have two very different cultures that have produced very different ways of relating and very different attributes, you could say. So it's like if you realize, wow, culture is that deep. And also, I mean, even going into human amongst humans, that there's an assumption that because testosterone is kind of the font of aggression, in which women also have, which we often forget about when we think about testosterone. But what research shows is that in cultures where men are responsible for caretaking, that T levels are way down.
Wow! So they're responsive to what's being used, as opposed to what's actually biologically innate.
Exactly. So innate is a very flexible context. It's innate in what context, you know, and that's so exactly. So that when you have a culture where the males are very important to child rearing, which they think in prehistory, and some of these, you know, the very first, you know, Homo sapiens that were kind of coming out of the savannah, that there was a real need for shared caretaking, and there was probably the kind of sense of testosterone drive doesn't really become part of human culture until we get warrior tribes, and then it's not simply that we have males who are aggressive. Anybody who can do it is aggressive.
Yeah.
You know, so in the UK you've got what I don't think I'll pronounce her name properly, but Boudica. Boudica, she's the Celtic warrior queen who I think defended the Celtic tribes from the Romans. You know, it's the ethos is might makes right. Everybody's surging with testosterone, or is in some submissive position trying to make sure that no one hurts them.
Yeah.
But that's the ethos for the entire culture. Yeah. So it's not just a male thing.
So to bring this back, it's fascinating what you're saying. To bring this back to someone in their own life and their own kind of self-development, part of what I'm hearing, which is so interesting, is this idea of embodying masculine or embodying feminine, that how much of that's actually a cultural idea, and I guess is then what's left open, the question of what's true for that individual or what's real for them in their experience. How does that meet someone's lived experience?
Well, let's put it this way. We're living in an incredibly complex world, right? Where we have, where the demands on us are to do everything, right? You know?
No shit.
and just to take a step back, in the modern world was created by separating, like, home and work.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we have two spheres, and it was the masculine sphere, or the male sphere, and the feminine or the female sphere. Well, most of us are dancing as fast as we can, kind of between both of those. We need to be doing, we need to really dismantle that division, because it's making us crazy. Crazy or really angry with each other in our personal lives. It's like, well, how come you get to keep, you know, you're the one that ends up having to take care of da-da-da-da all the time. But so we need to have and to develop and cultivate an enormous inner flexibility, a deep flexibility. And I think that see, it's interesting when we move to this world where and there's fascinating stuff behind how it happened, how we came up with this male public sphere and the female private sphere. But if you think before that, we had the feudal system, right, with the nobles on top and the king is connected to God, and it all comes down, and you get less and less godly as you go down.
Indeed,
and you go down into the dirt.
Sure.
But when that broke apart, and then we created a world, it was like, it was thought that this was God-given. When that broke apart, it was like, well, wow, what can we, it's kind of like, how do we create a society that is stable? Well, let's put it on something that's even more stable. Man and woman.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it makes total sense, what you're saying, yeah.
But now we're going, well, this isn't so stable.
Yeah, but then there's also, what strikes me is also the confusion of there seems to be a generation that are trying to be the best of masculine and the best of feminine in those traditional kind of senses of having to be the perfect mother and have a wonderful career, or a huge career, and a man being emotionally open and it's like
well, see, the thing is that these two worlds were made for 24/7 for
one role.
One role.
Right.
And now we're trying to do both.
In a 24-hour day.
In a 24-hour day at a much higher level. and a much greater awareness of like the sensitivity of children to their environment. Sure. And it's like,
true.
well, I snapped at my kid because I was so upset because of what's going on at work, and I'm ruining my child because of this. It's
and also knowing we're ruining our child.
I know, because we don't have enough time. But then how do we, we can't do that.
Right.
We can't be the perfect feminine that is selfless and and the perfect masculine, and in order to span these two worlds. We can't.
So what frees us from that obsession, that drive, that I guess part of it is the what you're saying about clarifying these roles in this.
Well, I think becoming aware of this is helpful, because then
Yeah.
you go like, oh, okay, I get it. No wonder it feels like I'm doing something that's impossible. It is impossible.
Right. Such a relief to hear you say that.
But then the other thing is, I think this is where developing consciousness comes in, or where something that one would call spirituality comes in, because the thing is, because of the way we've been raised, we're still raised in a world that has these differences, and we still judge ourselves. And you see women beating themselves up about not being there enough for their kids, and
it's torturous.
Or men feeling like, I don't want to be like my dad and just work, but I'm the one that actually has the job that earns more money, because this is still the way the world works, that her work isn't valued as,
but also wanting to be present to their kids in the way that their own father wasn't.
Exactly. Right. It's like, so how do I don't want to be in that trap anymore. So we feel bad when we don't meet those inner expectations, right? We feel guilty, we feel bad, we feel like we've let something in ourselves and with our partners down. And that's why we need to create the space in ourselves to be able to disidentify from that automatic response. And it's a big deal. It's really changing your inner architecture.
Right.
But really, things like the practice of meditation, learning that there is something that is bigger than my personal I sense, gives us an opening to, like, oh, this I that I am is part of something that is much bigger. It's informed by an intelligence that actually I wasn't even aware of, but is something that is bigger than my personal self sense. If we develop that capacity, we create a little room in ourselves where, when these feelings like, I'm not doing it right, and you can kind of go, oh, okay, that's that thing. And in that, we find that we're able to make choices. And it's not simply making choices like, do I want to stay home, what life choices we want to make, but make a choice whether or not that we're going to beat ourselves up, and be able to let go of that, and let go of that voice, or be able to recognize, like when you learn how to meditate, and you learn how to disconnect from that the voices, the thought stream that goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. You realize it's like, it could go forever. Where you realize it's like there are certain ones that really are trying to hook you in, and which also you learn in therapy.
Yes.
You say, I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to let it be. I'm going to let it be as it is, and I'm just going to pretend it's not there. And in that, I start to create a way of being in the world that gives me more freedom, and takes the pressure off me. And usually when the pressure is off oneself, it's off one's partner and off one's kids.
Yeah. In a sense, what was going through my mind in what you're saying is that it's almost, to be free, we have to recognize we are, if our idealization is being this perfect man or woman or whatever, we are going to screw it up.
Absolutely.
And it's like, once we get that, somehow something becomes easier.
Right. When you go, oh, it's funny, because I think a lot of people, I remember, I think I was doing some research on teenage girls, and she said, perfection, I don't understand this thing. People say I'm a perfectionist. I don't understand it because I'm not perfect. And I was like, it's that.
It's right there.
It's that part. But I'm not perfect part. And I think a lot of us, because we're trying so hard, feel that we're not really perfectionistic.
Yes.
But it's that trying so hard and it's that trying so hard that takes us away from being here, you know, being with the ones that we actually do love and care about, and we end up we're there, but we miss the real thing.
Yeah, we're out of time, but
Okay.
that's really beautiful. So
Great.
thank you so much,
You're
Elizabeth.
welcome.
And
You're welcome.
thank you for watching, and look forward to talking to you again, hopefully very soon. Bye bye.